What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you come into the channel and check out the content. With that being said, man, I want to speak on Stephen A's his response to this situation that Shannon Sharpe finds himself in with these charges that has been brought up or allegations that have been brought up against him as far as like this essay case with this young lady, right? And so a lot of people wanted to hear, like what Stephen A. Smith would say about the situation. Stephen A. Smith went on to his podcast and he addressed it. He did his he spoke about it for 20 minutes. And really, all I could really, he didn't really say too much about it. Like within that 20 minutes, he spoke for a long time, but he didn't really say much. But from what I gathered, it mostly was about Stephen A. Smith separating himself from from Shannon Shaw. You know, sometimes a lot of times with like Stephen A. Smith would come out and say something like, depending on who it is, like if they were from a certain community, Stephen A. Smith would immediately go to without much information, like throwing the people under the bus. Right. And if they were white or something like that, then Stephen A. Smith would be like, like with the situation with Dana White, Dana is my friend and all of this stuff and stand up for him. Or the situation with the coach, the owner from the Dallas Cowboy, Jerry Jones, right? He would stand up for him. And not that I think that, he should stand up for Shannon Sharpe, but it's just that you could kind of guess, like where Stephen A. Smith was going to fall on this situation. Like he was going to separate himself from the situation immediately, because it just depends on like who you are, as where he was. It's not about right or wrong or anything like that. It just basically with Stephen A. Smith just depends on who you are, where he is going to stand. Right. And so I want to play some of Stephen A. Smith's his comments from his podcast. And I just want to comment on some of what he said, because basically he basically what he's doing is he's separating himself from Shannon Sharpe. And so here we go with Stephen A's comments on the situation.
There's only going to be one subject discussed today, and it's where we're getting started. It's involving some news that broke yesterday involving Shannon Sharpe, my colleague at ESPN, and my friend. The Hall of Fame tight end was sued on Sunday by a woman proceeding under the name Jane Doe pseudonym. The 13-page civil complaint filed in Nevada alleges that Sharpe committed assault, sexual assault, battery, and sexual battery. The plaintiff alleges Sharpe sexually assaulted her several times at the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025. The suit also alleges that Shannon engaged in the intentional infliction of emotional distress. It should be noted that the suit was filed by attorney Tony Busby. This is the same attorney that filed a suit against Jay-Z and P. Diddy, alleging they both sexually assaulted a minor, which has since been withdrawn. Jay-Z also has countersued Busby. By the way, the plaintiff in the Sharpe civil suit is not the woman heard in the accidental Instagram live stream incident that made headlines last September of last year. In response to the suit, Shannon and his legal team went to social media yesterday.
All right, so I want to address the part with this lawyer Tony Busby and and Jay-Z. So all right, so I thought that maybe because this lawyer has a reputation of just almost just being like a shiesty type lawyer, right? And so with that being known by everybody who follows these different cases that Tony Busby has been involved in, I would think that Stephen A. Smith would like point this out, the fact that Tony Busby is some people see him as a shady character, almost like an ambulance chaser type of lawyer who goes after these type of cases to put pressure on people to get them to settle out of court. It's never with Tony Busby. It's never really. It's about the money, and it's never really about bringing somebody to justice. And so the fact that Stephen A. Smith, he brought up Tony Busby, but he didn't point that out about Tony Busby. And I thought that was kind of telling, and so, but I want to fast forward to some other things that Stephen A. Smith said about, I'm gonna go past the part where Shannon was addressing the situation, but Stephen A. Smith, like I said, just felt it necessary to, in my opinion, just separate himself from Shannon Sharpe.
Orthopedic expert recommendation. Cervical traction.
All right, let me get this off of here.
We don't know whether that's true or not. And the person in question, again, we don't know whether it's Shannon or not, other the words choke, as in I will choke the hell out of you if I saw you. And so because of that, knowing that audio was probably going to come out along with additional tapes, whether they be video or audio is unclear at this particular moment in time, Shannon Sharpe felt compelled to come out in his own defense. How we to interpret that? Let me be very, very clear about where I'm coming from. I'm a bit torn in terms of his response. On one hand, Tony Busby has sued Jay-Z. He did sue Diddy. He did accuse them or represented the woman who was accusing them of assault, of sexual assault, and said that she was 13 years of age at the time when talking about Jay-Z and Diddy, and Jay-Z went.
All right, so I mean, all right, so he's going on about the situation with Jay-Z when people really want to hear about, like where do you feel, where do you stand on as far as like the Shannon Sharpe situation. And so he, again, he's like 12 minutes into his interview, 10 minutes into his interview, and he's still, going on about Jay-Z, which I think that's a tactic he's using to avoid the situation because, do he have some inside information about what's going on? Maybe not, maybe not. He's throughout this interview, he said that he didn't, well, not the interview, but throughout this broadcast, he said that he didn't, have any special, any facts or anything about the case. But throughout this interview, it just seems like he's just trying to distance himself from Shannon Sharpe.
So we have an obligation to mention that. So on one hand, going on the offensive to defend himself, I completely understand where Shannon Sharpe is coming from. On the other hand, when his legal team issued out the press release on X yesterday, and they spoke about, they mentioned her name, and they revealed some of those explicit text messages, that was uncomfortable. And I don't know if that's a strategy that would work. One of the hardest things in the world for all of us to do is to just lay low and be quiet and let our legal team do it. And we don't always know whether or not that's the right thing to do.
See, I just think that, again, Stephen A. Smith is just basically what he's trying to do is just separate himself, and I think at a time like this is when somebody who like Shannon Sharpe really needs, like Stephen A. Smith support. Stephen A. Smith was, like he said earlier in his interview or his podcast or his broadcast, he just said that he was one who brought brought Shannon Sharpe to this network. And now, Shannon Sharpe is in this situation, and he's kind of like ostracized, because nobody, is going to is really going to stand with him. This situation for Shannon Sharpe, in my opinion, is a nightmare. And so let me see. And so I want to read some comments though about like what people feel about this situation. One person from who was watching the Stephen A. Smith show said that Shannon told Ocho a year ago that he didn't want a woman of God. Instead, he wanted a sinner. Well, this is what a sinner type of woman gets you. Men, you need to wisen up. And so I thought that was a good point that this person made. 1 minute of lust can destroy what a man took a lifetime to build, and for somebody to be, to have the experiences that Shannon Sharpe had with these type of allegations, it seemed like he would have been a little bit more on guard, a little bit more diligent as to, the people that he invited into his circle, a little bit more careful as far as getting people to sign like NDAs and stuff like that. You're talking about a man who was 50 something years old and just didn't, he ignored all of that, his past experiences, his personal past experience, and he knows situations where other people have gone through these type of situations too. And he still couldn't avoid it, and so, when you look at the situation though, really, he's not given Shannon Sharpe is not really giving Stephen A. Smith a lot a lot of reason to support him, and so it's not, in my opinion, it's not all on Stephen A. Smith to support him, but Shannon Sharpe, knowing better and has been in this situation before, is not really giving him or a lot of other people reason to support him. And somebody also mentioned on here, the comedian Monique told Shannon Sharpe that he needed an older woman and to leave them young women alone. And I do remember that episode of Club Shay Shay when she was on there telling, Monique was telling him, leave these younger women alone. And but he didn't, I don't know, he 50 something years old and think that he can move and move like somebody who was, like the young lady's age, like 19 or 20. If you 19 or you 20, and you don't have no money or no success and you don't have anything to lose, like this situation for that young girl, she would have most likely just moved on, or maybe probably not even dealt with him. If he don't have any money, he don't have any fame or anything that she could come after. She would have understood that this relationship was just she would have, she understood that it was transactional. But since Shannon Sharpe had something that she can go after, she took advantage of that situation, And so let me see. What else? And basically those, those are the same type of comments, that people are really, they want to support. People want to support Shannon Sharpe, but they also, they want something more solid to support him. They and people mainly wish that he hadn't put himself in this position. That's a lot of the messages I'm reading, is the fact that it's regret for him putting himself in this position. People going to support him because they're hoping for the best, just like Stephen A. Smith. They're hoping for the best, but he's not really giving Stephen A. Smith nor a lot of other people reason to, to publicly, take that type of stance. And so that's what I wanted to say. He didn't really give Stephen A. Smith a lot to support him. And with these type of allegations and Stephen A. Smith being so close to him and not really wanting to, in my opinion, to to mess up his situation and his money, Shannon Sharpe didn't really leave much room for Stephen A. Smith to support him. So that's probably why it's looking like Stephen A. Smith is just separating himself from the situation. And that's my take on it. Make sure to like and subscribe. With that being said, don't forget to leave a comment, and I will check you all out in the next video. Peace.